this for a fact that my sister, she has a 6-year-old, my 6-year-old niece.
They're in California.
They're in California, and they would come home and ask, Mommy, do we come from monkeys? Things of that nature. And Mommy, what is a transgender? You can imagine the doors that kind of education opens to kids when it comes back to going to the issue of tashkik, doubting. So it's not, a lot of these uncles that we meet actually in US and in the West in general, and they say like the best Islam actually is in America. It's in the West.
It's the best
Islam. Is look, we have great mosques and we're studying the East and the West. And
that's if you're 65 years old and all you do is walk to the mosque and come home again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They do not understand that, Habibi, the whole reason that we did iqamatul salah and making mosque was so we can have our jazm tam in our aqaid, which we don't have it. So what's the point of having epic mosques and we converted a Walmart into a mosque and we have so many converts and we have so many droves of Muslims coming when there's that thing that's shocking.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to the two Mullas. I'm joined today, as I will be every week, by Sheikh Anwar Mangal, and he is a very, very old, very close friend of mine who has been with me along my entire learning journey, haven't you, Anwar?
Yeah.
All those years in Jordan.
All those years, absolutely. It seems like it was yesterday, but it goes back to September 2007 when we met at Qasid.
Exactly. It's actually our 16th friend anniversary. BFF anniversary.
And immediately when I met you, and you invited me to your place in Hayy al-Kharabsha. And we went there and you made me some tea, and right off the bat, actually, you just took, you had a couple of history of Western philosophy, those 4 volumes, I believe.
Did I?
You did.
Was it Cobblestone? It could have been Cobblestone.
It could have been that. And right away, you just went into it and you tried to break down Western philosophy to me. And in my mind, I was like, this is a strange person, actually. I like what he's talking about. It's very, very interesting. But, you just don't bring someone into your house and all of a sudden you just usher in all these.
Absolutely. It's a little bit odd, isn't it? I have to say, yes, there was a certain recognition. I think many people have experienced that you have certain moments in your life where you see a person and there's a kind of premonition that this person is going to be very important in your life. And that was absolutely my experience when I met Anwar. I mean, Anwar's been a very important figure in my life because he is a real sharqi, right? And I have a very unusual background in that I come from a convert family. I'm not a convert myself, who converted in the 70s, and they were very, very spiritually radical. I know radical is not a good word to use, although thankfully we're emerging from that whole paranoia period of the 2001, basically about 2012, wasn't it, or something like that. But they were very, very spiritually radical. They were involved in, I suppose, what you'd call communes. They really almost adopted a kind of holy poverty, like the Muslim version of the Franciscans. And they all lived together in these very radical communities. But spiritually radical. But the point of this is that I never came from a stably Western identity.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't a Sharqi either. So I was in some sense somewhere in between. And I think this is very significant because there is a Western mentality. I know we like to delude ourselves that it's kind of universal and neutral and it's just a place where there's this pluralism and people of different cultures come together. But there is a I mean, they're predominant siffers. I mean, one of them's stinginess.
No, but in all honesty, one of the things that really attracted me towards you were that you were as Sharqi as it really gets with Westerners, because I remember you inviting me to your house, taking me out to restaurants, and that was very unlike the Westerns that I was, or the converts that I knew. You lavishly spent money on me. I remember, especially with food. And I remember when my rent was, when I had my contract, when I was living my first apartment in Jordan, when that was ending, and I couldn't find a place. Actually, it was just multiple issues coming together at the same time. I didn't have a place, and you invited me to your place. You can come live with me. Sort of.
I can't remember any of these
No,
things.
absolutely. I remember.
They're amazing.
And I'll tell you the problems we also had living together.
Yeah.
So you invited me to your place, and it was a one-bedroom apartment. I was in the living room. You were in the bedroom. But then you allowed me to stay in the bedroom, and you lived in the living room.
Yeah, I went into the living room.
Yeah, I remember that, and that was something that obviously you don't forget, and that's something it's extremely real. It's an old school thing. You don't find it in our times, but as an Afghan, obviously, it's those kind of features.
Didn't know I was such a Zahid.
Well, it was, our friendship had its ups and downs, and I remember
it did, and
in fact, I remember
the friendships
time,
that stay together are usually the critical ones, where you can be openly critical about each other.
Absolutely, and I remember the first time actually when we fought, where I don't know, I was a kind of a person. I'm not overtly, obsessed with cleanliness or anything like that. But with water and how you put your glasses, how your kitchen has to be neat. These are the kind of things that my mother had taught me, and I was, I used to take it seriously.
Obsessive compulsive.
and our first problem was when I saw you making your wudu
and
all the water you were wasting.
Yeah.
And when I would come to use the sink, I would see water all over the place. And the first time I told you diplomatically, I said, see, this water, it'll be nice if you just wipe it off and, use it.
Yeah.
And then it occurred again and again. And then eventually we had a fight on that.
Those are the memories.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely true that I would be very easily outraged if someone was to correct me or give me advice. And I think to a certain extent it was true of you. And that is just a feature of youth and before you become fully mature.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we see on Twitter a lot, isn't it? People have very bad manners.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, but I can sympathize because, those people are obviously about 19 and they don't know how to behave properly. So, one of the extraordinary things that we went through together, this is all early days for us, but what is so special about our friendship is that we had the most extraordinary shared experiences of 10 years studying under an extraordinary Sufi sheikh and alim called the Sayyid Qusay Abu Sa'd. And the thing is, radiallahu anhu, who's an Iraqi Sayyid from Ahlul Bayt, from a very, very illustrious ilmi family, a scholarly family, in Iraq previously, before everything fell apart. Very, very tragically, you had ilmi families, the Alusi family, and you had also the Abu Sa'd family and several others, most of whom are not very well known today unless you happen to be in certain circles in Iraq. But we not only studied with the sheikh, but we had a very, very exclusive, not elitist because of wanting to be, but exclusive in the sense that it was a very, very small group of people around the sheikh who were given an enormous amount of attention and time. So absolutely, it wasn't just, we studied with such and such a big scholar and we saw him once a week for 2 years. We were there at least 5 days a week, very often 6 days a week, very often 7 days a week, for hours and hours every day. We lived with this great scholar, this great sage, and we were really brought up by him in very meaningful ways. So, and we saw extraordinary miracles, frankly, from him, and we experienced extraordinary, not to make claims about ourselves, because nothing to do with us, and we're pretty awful actually, but we experienced extraordinary ruhaniyat and an extraordinary taste of just how powerful and extraordinary our ilmi tradition is. Isn't that right?
It's one of those things that you really read in the books and you think it just doesn't exist in our times anymore. And then you come face to face with it and you realize that no, even in our times there's barakah in this ummah and there's awliya and salihin and ulama. You just have to so it's one of those things. It really is bizarre experiences. In the beginning, it's almost bizarre that you come across people who are otherworldly, and then you get used to it because you experience so many of these. Well, I don't have to call it supernatural, but experiences beyond the pale of everyday life that you just become. It becomes like every day for you.
It becomes everyday life.
Every day. So it at some point it becomes mundane actually when it happens. So consistently. And it's a shame that a lot of us at that time, we took it for granted and we thought it's going to be forever. But obviously, this dunya, everything that you love has to be separated. Every lover has to be separated from the beloved. It's just from the shan of dunya,
Of course.
And whether it's
our sheikh eventually returned back to Baghdad after many, many, many years of wanting to. He was a refugee here. So,
and even our relationship, it was not without its ups and downs and its challenges and
there's any truly human relationship.
Exactly. So it's not all a fairy tale. It had its challenges, and mostly because of our lack of understanding people, personalities who truly, especially the Sayyid was medieval in so many ways. His tastes, the ways, perspectives on life. And it's difficult to always, look eye to eye on so many issues. But overwhelmingly, we had an amazing futuhat, we had an amazing experience. Nobody can deny that. And it certainly is the people we are today, especially in your case.
Well, I think in both our cases.
Yeah, no, certainly in your case, because you have studied, I think objectively, you studied more than I have with the Sayyid.
I don't know.
I was traveling quite often.
Often
because of my immigration status. I had an Afghan passport, so I had to, between US and Jordan, I had to travel quite often. And there was times that I missed a lot of books, a lot of material, but you were there religiously. You were attending everything religiously, and the passion that you showed for ulum, especially maqulat, the rational sciences, it was almost as if a man possessed in pursuit of something.
I'm blushing.
You feel like a cheat, don't you? No, but it's true, and the fact that all that juhud and all that the effort that you really put in fact to understand the rational sciences, the traditional sciences, this is what we're seeing. Your works. No, seriously, in all honesty, I mean it's. In many ways unique and absolutely, it's unique.
Very kind of you,
and so you deserve it. You deserve all the attention and all the du'as you're getting for your work you're doing. And
what about all the du'as against me? Do I deserve that?
Listen,
I'm sure I do.
Even Imam Ghazali and Fakhruddin Razi had their detractors, detractors is a sign of success. So,
well, you are at least definitely ruffling feathers. I suppose to ruffle feathers is something.
And we're going to talk about that also as time passes on. These issues of what is exactly that you represent, or in some capacity I also, but especially you, because this is your Maidan, this is your territory now. The rational science. No, that's what it is.
Don't be humble.
So the challenges that you see and the opposition that you get to experience on a daily basis, whether it's in social media or in reality, out there in academia, that's something I would love to explore, because
we will.
The kind of conversation we had in private, it would be really nice for your audience to also get a.
Absolutely, and I think that we're going to have excellent guests like Sheikh Marwan Al-Khatib and others who will also expand on these issues. I'll give you an example of the type of strange occurrence that I experienced when I met the Sheikh. Just one example. There are many, many examples, and Sidi Anwar's had many, many experiences as well. But one very strange example. Just imagine this: you're 21 years old. I just met the Sheikh. I didn't know. I was enraptured by this man's extraordinary spirit and intellect, but I hadn't actually spent that much time with him. I had come up with I can't remember, to be honest, the exact masala, the exact very, very specific ilmi question, but I had a very, very specific philosophical question, which I couldn't find anywhere. I'd asked many people, and it wasn't a common question at all. And I had this in mind of I'm going to ask the Sheikh, and I was pretty proud of myself that, I was going to ask this very clever question. And I went to the Sheikh's house, and I thought, well, maybe this is going to even give him some trouble. And I framed the question, and my Arabic wasn't great at the time, and I think I got some help from those around, but the Sheikh understood what I was saying. And he was like, when he heard the Sheikh, he was like, And he has a library of probably 5,000 books, okay? He suddenly goes like this. He's like, and he starts reading the answer.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
He starts reading the answer. Can you imagine that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't from Ihya, by the way. That just
Like
happened to be there.
randomly reaching to a book,
Exactly.
pulling it
He
out.
blows on it and he opens it. He doesn't search around it, he opens it on the exact page and he starts reading the precise answer. So that was pretty extraordinary because in a way that's more than just a karama. That's like predetermined harmony.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're seeing in a way, sometimes in the presence of these people, you see Allah, you witness Allah Ta'ala's presence because you see your qadr unfolding rather than it being just something kind of hidden as it usually is. Yeah.
And what is interesting is also actually you met the Sheikh first, but I took the tariq from him before you. So you met him. I remember you meeting him, and at that time I hadn't met him.
Yeah.
And I remember a phone conversation with you, and then after that, actually, you went to Turkey. You told me like, oh, Anwar, I think I've met the Ghazali of our times. That's what exactly I remember you telling me. And then I was intrigued. So it was through Sheikh Marwan al-Khatib.
That was in the days I didn't know anyone other than Ghazali. So it had to be Ghazali.
And you told me about his figure, his presence, and the aesthetics of how he lives his life and all those things. So it's a whole package. And I remember when I finally met him, maybe a couple of months after our phone conversation, you were in Turkey at that time. And it was the same thing, the experiences we had. I knew that this is a person that I have to spend a lot of my life with.
Yeah.
Because I'd initially come to Jordan just to study Arabic for 6 months.
Yeah.
And Qasid, initially. That 6 months turned into 12 years, I ended up living here. I got married, my kids, I raised my kids here. So that's the nasib we had. And then after that, when you spoke with me, when you were Turkey, and I think you were pretty depressed in Turkey at the time. I think you were going through a lot.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I told you, hey, Hasan, you remember that person you said is the Ghazali for time? Well, guess what? I'm his murid now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you felt. Perhaps, I don't know, a bit of envy.
I was very excited and envious.
Envious. And then the next thing I knew, you came to Jordan and I picked you up from the airport and I took you to the Sheikh's house.
Yeah.
And the rest is history, pretty much. And that's it. And
absolutely.
And you pretty much reoriented me too. We reoriented our lives from something that we thought we were doing, because I was into, I have my bachelor's in international relations, and I was going to work in U.S. embassies and diplomacy and things of that nature. I still have my master's in diplomacy, but that was the thing that my career was going towards. And all of a sudden, it all changed, and we ended up staying here, studying ulum, and it's when we revisit those days, it's quite bizarre. The experience is something that you read in books, but it really happened to us.
It really happened. And I think it's just to try to give a sense of what on earth we're talking about. It's coming into contact with the living tradition, embodied in a person, but someone who just has such a complete realization. The Arabic word is tahaqquq, realization of both the outward of the Islamic tradition and the inward of the Islamic tradition in a way that you very, very rarely see. It was there in the aesthetics. I mean, you go into his house and there's an original Ottoman Ferman on his wall, dedicated to one of his grandfathers, great-grandfathers. So
by Sultan Abdul Majid.
Was it Sultan Majid? And he'd come out with the medal, what's it called? The Nishan.
Yeah, Nishan.
The Nishan. And so many other extraordinary items. And we frankly can't go into all the things that we saw. It's not for a host of reasons. But in any case, it was an extraordinary experience of just that living presence of something very, very precious that you can't find today. And, amidst all the braying, I'm sorry to characterize it as braying, but amidst all the braying of a lot of the contemporary pseudo-Islamic discourse, which is, unfortunately, I'm calling it pseudo-Islamic, is harsh Islam. Far be it from Islam that you get people who don't have any background or training or inheritance of a living tradition which reveres even the last generation. And then you get this endless wrangling of people fighting and where it's unresolvable because the people don't have the requisite knowledge. They don't know adab al-bahth, they don't know how to debate, they don't know how to discuss.
And overall, there's lack of barakah in their talab al-ilm, because when we met the Sheikh, if you remember, we did not start the ulum right away.
Mm.
And it took us, I don't know, maybe perhaps a year.
Yeah.
I mean, we were obviously, he encouraged us to go memorize the Quran and get your basic sarf and nahu done and things of that nature, which we were doing with Sheikh Raja, Sheikh Sidi Marwan. But that 1 year before the whole manhaj started, when we started our studies, it was all about come to my house, sit with me, eat with me, travel with me, walk with me.
Yeah.
You know, it was things of that nature, you know, standing up to a sheikh, you know, keep standing while he sits. And the way we said, you know, the way we pray behind him, the way we serve his guests, the way we get served. And there's so many, the dynamics of just living with an alim and somebody who's taken it from his father and their father, generation after generation of very aristocratic nobility.
They're true aristocrats,
yeah.
exactly.
Learning all that tradition is something that you cannot really even pay to get these
You
days.
can't pay. It's a priceless.
It is
priceless commodity.
And then in the meantime, learning about the history of Iraq and the history of the Ottoman lands and the sultans, certain things that you really cannot find in books because these are all riwayat from
it's
from
the lived experience, and it's
the
the ruhaniyah that you recognize that this is authentic when someone's talking about. It's not just empty words.
Yeah. And with all that beauty and Jamal, there was also a lot of jalal and challenges and issues that from time to time would raise its heads, and we had to find ways of finding solutions to it or dealing with it.
Well, this is someone who was thrown out of Iraq, had family members killed, had his library burnt, had
he was
great wealth stolen from him,
and to a large extent the government, militias, to some extent, I think even the American government, I don't know, at that time they were after everybody, right? So he had to come to Jordan, and not only him, but so many other Iraqi scholars that we met in Jordan. And then eventually after 2012, also the Syrian ulama that we met. It just happens that Oman turned out to be a place where a lot of these refugees and a lot of tragedies unfortunately actually pushed these people to come to Oman. But we really benefited from them because if those, unfortunately for what happened in Iraq and Syria, the personalities, the scholars that we met was, obviously because of those tragedies.
In fact, the main theme of this particular episode is the fact that this is indeed moved to Muscat. You may have seen that wonderfully narrated, I have to say, video, which promotes the whole project. But it's a very, very interesting enterprise. I mean, I personally feel post 9/11, when it came to the question of Hijra, it became very wrongly, I'm afraid, almost a taboo subject. So that to even question that whole narrative about creating a Western Islam and we have to stay here and we're doing Dawa became somehow an extreme position and one which placed you into some sort of unacceptable category of reactionary. So I think in the intervening period, we've come to a point now really where things have changed. It's not just that we have this idea of that you sometimes hear today of legacy media and then a really new discourse and situation, but it's almost we have a kind of legacy Dawa now. And then a lot, when it comes to the kind of situation on social media and the newer figures who are appearing and dominating the discourse, there are very, very different options opening up. And I think one of the things that's no longer taboo to talk about is, do we really have to be committed to that Western Islam project still? Or is there perhaps a pressing need to consider that option of Hijra? Over to you.
Well, what I'm going to do, this is something that we may be discussing in more detail in coming episodes. But I'd like to really summarize what I believe are the most pertinent points from our particular point of view, because we've been in the Hijra business, so to speak, for the last 15 years. You have lived in Turkey, in Syria, and Jordan for the last 15, 16 years. I've lived in Jordan for 12 years, and I went to Pakistan. I lived in Pakistan for 2 years. I'm a U.S. citizen, but I just visit the U.S. Not that frequently, and because my parents are there, my siblings are there.
Well, you partially grew up in the Bay Area, didn't you?
I did, yes.
I think the Bay Area is a very pertinent focus for us because it's kind of symbolic almost of precisely what is going wrong.
Yes,
with the West today.
I was part of that initial Zaytuna community
Mhm.
before it became Zaytuna College. It was Zaytuna community, and my teacher at the time was Osama Cannon of blessed memory, rahimahullah. He was our Arabic teacher in Zaytuna.
Yeah,
We used to call it Zaytuna at that time. It was just a commune.
it was Zaytuna Institute, wasn't it?
It was a Zaytuna Institute, or Zaytuna, we used to call it. So I was definitely raised in that environment. My first, obviously, Islam has been always part of, as Afghans, it's part of our DNA.
Mhm.
But, you know, traditional Islam, tasawwuf, ulum, Arabic.
Were you religious? Or?
I was not particularly religious because I don't come from a religious family, as you know.
Mhm.
But because I was raised in Pakistan, I was in a boarding school in Pakistan for 7 years, from age 7 to, I don't know, 13, 14. I was in a boarding school, me and my brother. So obviously in a Pakistani boarding school, they always initiate you into the basics of Islam, praying 5 times a day, you know, the life in a boarding school. You know, I mean, just by the token of living in an Islamic society long enough,
Yeah.
you pick up on certain things, you know, the dururiyat of your religion, you pick it up.
Mhm.
So I had memorized parts of the Quran, and you have to recite the Quran,
Yeah.
and you have to pray, you know, by the
Mashallah.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So yeah, the Hijra issue actually is something that we have been living through, and we have been investigating, researching all aspects of it for such a long time. I mean, 15, 16 years now. I mean, you've lived in Turkey, you've lived in Syria, you've lived over a
Jordan,
decade in
Morocco.
Jordan, Morocco.
Yeah.
I've lived in Jordan 12 years. I've lived in Pakistan 4 years. And now I am in Muscat, Oman. So I think we have a.
But you're originally from Afghanistan. You went to India for a year. Then
Yes.
you went to boarding schools in Pakistan,
Yeah.
and you were in the Bay Area,
Yes.
and you were involved in the early Zaytuna.
Yeah, so
discussion.
obviously being Afghan, I mean, as you know, I mean, because of the civil war, after the Russian invasion, the civil war, we had to leave. We went to India, we lived for a year in India, then UAE actually, and then finally in Pakistan. In Pakistan, I was in a boarding school for 7 years, from age 7 to age 13. Me and my brother were in a boarding school. So a lot of our Islamic ethics, understanding, you know, all it came from the Pakistani sort of mashrab
Right.
of the Awam of
Yeah.
Pakistan.
Mhm.
So Pakistan is like a second home to me.
Of course.
And I have.
And Anwar speaks Urdu, Pashto, Farsi, English, Arabic perfectly. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's
Habibi.
fine. No problem.
Look, the question I want to ask you is, your family then went to the Bay Area.
Then my family went
And I
to-
suppose probably the hope for everyone around you in your community was, well, we're going to settle here, we're going to make businesses here, we're going to raise our families
Absolutely,
here.
yeah.
And you found, didn't you, that was just not possible for you ethically or any other sense. You found that was really not possible for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does it feed into your whole Hijra
Excellent,
idea?
excellent. Actually, that's a good way of framing it. So living in the Bay Area with so many Afghans, so many Muslims, having some Islamic schools, not enough, but some, our masajid, the halal shops, there were so many Afghans, restaurants. It felt like the perfect place to be living in the West as a Muslim, actually. For many, and we had Zaytuna. I was attending Zaytuna at the time.
Institute,
I was learning Arabic.
Place,
my teacher was Ustad Osama Cannon of blessed memory, rahimahullah. He was the first person actually with whom I spent considerable amount of time learning Arabic, the deen, and things of that nature. So that was our awakening moment, you know, coming of age into traditional Islam. So we really thought this was the perfect place to be doing Dawa, to be raising our families. But then obviously I came to Jordan after I got my bachelor's in international relations. I was only supposed to be here for 6 months, and then it turns into 10, 12 years, you know, a long journey.
Tell me about it.
And, you know, the experience is, I'm going to summarize this, and then we can obviously, each of this point, we can branch out and expand on it. But to summarize it is that I'm really interested from our experiences, from our research, in understanding the Hijra issues through the ijma of the ulama, especially the mahal al-ittifaq, you know, the places where everybody agrees. Because you can go out and branch out into all the ikhtilafat, but the asal is the ijma, the mahal al-ittifaq, not only within traditional Sunni schools, 4 schools, but also the Salafi. If we study the mabhath, which is iqama bayna al-dhahrani al-kuffar, or al-mukth bayna al-dhahrani al-kuffar, living in non-Muslim lands, you know, what is the hukum of that? And the mahal of ijma is that if you cannot preserve your deen, then it's yajib, it's wajib, it's obligatory for you to leave that place and make hijrah.
Why do you believe that the West is no longer a good place to raise a Muslim family?
Excellent. So after we understand the mahal of ijma of the ulama, that if you cannot preserve your deen in a place, then you have to leave that place. And if you're capable of it, furthermore, if you're capable and you're not doing it, actually at the murtakabul kabira. So basically you're committing a major sin.
Okay, but let's take you.
But that's a different issue which we will come to.
Right.
So the issue is about preserving your deen. Are you capable or not? Now, if you look at our deen, it has two pillars to it, or aspects to it: your aqaid, your beliefs, and the a'mal, the actions.
Practice.
Yeah. What we have seen in the whole hijrah conversation and debate over the years, it has mostly been about are we able to act as Muslims in the West? Iqamatul salat, ita'u zakat. Can we have our Jummah prayer in the West? The answer is yes. Can our daughters and wives wear their hijab? The answer is yes.
Mostly. Yeah.
Mostly, you know, and in case of the US,
so basically, can we create a bubble? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Can we build our mosques? The answer is yes. Nobody's stopping you from building your mosques or having your children wear the hijab or having your Jummah prayers. The debate has mostly been about that.
So people, halal meat,
things of that nature. Yeah. But the aqidah issue really never factored in, and the reason for that is because people said, but nobody is forcing you to leave your deen, so that issue was never a consideration. Aqidah, so the deen has aqidah and amal, and most of the hijrah debate has been about the actions. Can we do this? Can we do that? The answer is yes. But the way I look at it, and I think we have discussed this in detail, is that the Muslims conveniently forgot the aqidah part because they said nobody's pushing you to become non-Muslims, nobody's telling you to leave Islam. So you're practicing your Islam. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that nobody has to forcefully make you leave Islam. Yeah, nobody has to persecute you. All society or the organizations or the infrastructure, the ecosystem of a non-Muslim society has to do is to create shak in you about your aqaid.
Exactly.
All they have to do,
and it can be a very, very deep level, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. All they have to do is create enough shak that you never have jazm tam about your beliefs.
Exactly.
The funny thing about beliefs is that it's not a 50-50 thing. It's not you need to get it 90% out of 100.
Yeah.
It's not even 99% out of 100. It's 100 out of 100. There has to be absolute certainty about it. There's no if buts.
Yeah, necessary belief, necessary knowledge.
Knowledge in order for it to count. And in our experiences, we can say this, that jazm does not exist with a lot of Muslims.
It doesn't exist, if you don't mind me interjecting very briefly, it doesn't exist because Muslims are not philosophically aware of their surroundings. And it's not the case that, who can expect us? We're just kind of primitive people. La, hasha, far be it from the Muslims. We are only primitive people now because we've lost our rooting in our Islamic tradition. The ulama used to be a genuine intellectual elite. And no offense now, today, 5% of musamma al-ulama, or the mutasaddirun, the people who are out there who are considered to be ulama, they're not an intellectual elite anymore. And I've detailed this in a number of different ways. The ulama traditionally were people you could go to and ask the most difficult questions and expect the answers. So the thing is, Muslims have come into an environment of methodological skepticism that they are imbibing passively all the time through media, through their school education, so on. And you're starting to see certain things come out now. Most of the scholars who, frankly, with no offense intended, this is just a fact, they will say, "Oh yeah, evolution's true."
Yeah,
they don't understand the theory of evolution. They don't understand the basics of it, and they certainly don't understand the philosophical implications or presuppositions They don't understand the historical background, but they're telling their flock, as it were, you should believe in evolution because it means you're modern and sophisticated. It's actually not in those words, but that's what it comes down to. We don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
So it's that type of thing which is very problematic, and they're not teaching people, are they? Because they're not rooted in that. But the fact that we don't have a Western post-Christian conception of religious faith where that jazm tam is not required. It's just, I believe in that. I suppose so, It could be wrong, but, it's what makes sense to me. That's not acceptable. So because in our tradition, Iman has a very, very close definition that actually presupposes the concept of ilm, knowledge. Iman is a form of knowledge. So that's just a little interjection.
Yeah, that's very eloquently put. I don't have your English to explain, to articulate myself like that.
Well, I think you do, and you have 5 other languages as well.
But absolutely, that's the philosophical underpinnings of this reality. But going back to how important it is to make sure that your iman counts, your aqidah counts. Actually, for that you have to have 100% certainty that this is the case. Now, we have seen it. Now it's demonstrable. I mean, we have evidence that people are not certain about their aqidah. It's beyond any doubt. Not only in our, anecdotally, how many people we've met from the West who actually are public intellectuals, but when they sit and talk about certain things, they're mutazalzal, mutashakkikin in certain, whether it's evolution, whether it's certain things to do with evil in the world and things of that nature.
Even this issue of certainty.
Yeah, even this issue of certainty. They wouldn't. For them, it's not a big deal that I need to be absolutely certain about.
Just to be clear, this isn't like being from the Ahbash or something. No offense to them particularly. There's mahal ittifaq. There's no difference of opinion in ilm usul ad-din that you have to possess certainty, a doubtful attitude. Well, I think that God might exist, so that's not even accepted. So this is not some sort of extreme position. This is just a basic of our religious teaching, which has become doubtful to people because of a lack of proper instruction.
And it's not even an issue as obvious. I mean, that would be something, the existence of God. It's not something as obvious as that. It's to a large extent people. I'll give you an example. Like in 2017, there was this Pew Research poll of American Muslims, and the question was, to the American Muslims, you can Google this online, you can find this. Is homosexuality acceptable? Should society accept homosexuality? Now, 50% of Muslims says, yeah, there's no problem for that. Now, we know, absolutely.
You're homophobic.
So we know that, obviously, aqidah could be furthermore divided into what pertains to our beliefs and Allah.
This is ma'lum and din
bil-darura. And then and the aqidah that pertains to fiqh,
right,
which is qat'i, which you cannot deny, which is that homosexuality is haram, and anybody who thinks now it's acceptable, they leave Islam.
Right.
Or something like somebody saying that, eating pork is fine, it's halal, you can do it.
Right.
Leave Islam.
Because these are basic facts.
These are absolutely,
you
cannot, it's qat'i, right?
Yeah.
But we're seeing people accepting qat'iyat now.
Right.
Whether even it's a fiqh issue.
Right.
But they are denying.
Which goes against the qat'iyat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if that is the case with Muslims in 2017, I think things have got much worse.
Well, the thing is, year by year, you'll find a new religious figure who says, well, actually, maybe this is plausible.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe this is plausible.
Absolutely.
And they'll have their flock.
And they cause, again, that
exactly. They get that tazalzul, and the more figures there are, it becomes a kind of consensus. Like, well, hold on, they're all saying that this is plausible. Now, the thing is, what I wanted to move on to now is another.
If I could connect, actually, there's a very important point that I want to connect. In our experience meeting public intellectuals, Muslims in the West, how many times we've come across some very a'lam actually, who would say something, along the lines of, I don't see any problem in believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the universe and then allowed, the way things are. This is sunnah, so to speak, allowed randomness to take over and the natural selection. And he was not actually involved in every small particular detail of
exactly.
the
So
act.
they're
Things of
talking
that
about
nature.
kind of deism. Yeah.
And what it means is that as if it's our
interventionist God.
jazm tam that Allah wills things and he has a qudra over things and he makes everything happen. Every single
thing, and that's the Ash'ari view, and that's also the Akbari
and you
view.
have to be,
and Sheikh Al-Akbar he notes that this is one of the things that the Ash'aris very much got right. So,
and you have to believe in that. The minute you think there's some randomness happening, and you understand, evolution and all the sub issues that are related to evolution and natural selection, but there's so many of them that we meet. We're like, I don't have any problem with this belief that there's randomness in creation and Allah is not involved. Hashahu. So things of this nature is happening to our kids when they're attending schools. They're being taught evolution, LGBT issues. I mean, I know this for a fact that my sister, she has a 6-year-old, my 6-year-old niece.
They're in California.
They're in California, and they would come home and ask, Mommy, do we come from monkeys? Things of that nature. And Mommy, what is a transgender? You can imagine the doors that kind of education opens to kids when it comes back to going to the issue of tashkik, doubting. So it's not, a lot of these uncles that we meet actually in US and in the West in general, they say like the best Islam actually is in America. It's in the West.
It's the best
Islam. Look, we have great mosques and we're studying the East and the West. And
that's if you're 65 years old and all you do is walk to the mosque and come home again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They do not understand that, Habibi, the whole reason that we did iqamatul salah and making mosque was so we can have our jazm tam in our aqaid, which we don't have it. So what's the point of having epic mosques and we converted a Walmart into a mosque and we have so many converts and we have so many droves of Muslims coming when there's that thing that's shak.
Thank you very much.
Where's that aspects of shak in everything, especially in the necessary beliefs.
And there's not even awareness that shak is unacceptable.
It's unacceptable.
Because they're accepting a Western world religions model idea of Islam that, there's the Hindus in their temple down there, there's the Sikhs in their Gurdwara, and we've got our mosque, and we all have our own beliefs, and no one really knows who's right.
Exactly.
But that's what we believe. In.
To build upon that, that's why. And you see this issue that we see of sending our children to public schools or even some Islamic schools, and
So what's wrong with Islamic schools, Anwar?
Well, the thing is, first of all, there's nothing wrong with Islamic schools, but coming from the Bay Area, where there's at the very least, in the Bay Area, the extended Bay Area, at least 800,000 Muslims. Right. There's only like 3 Islamic schools, and the waiting list for each is over a year.
Are there really 800,000?
There's a lot of Muslims.
God almighty. But I think what I would say in answer to my own question is exactly what we've just been discussing. Those Islamic schools, are they really teaching foundation?
Exactly.
Or is it just another, you got an Islamic bank, you put the word Islamic, you got Islamic pop music, you got Islamic butler and Islamic suit, and you got Islamic school, but what's Islamic about it? And I'm sure in some cases they really are Islamic, but I think in a number of cases they're not. You're taking a secular model education, you're sticking the Islamic label
I mean, if the Islamic education is not about teaching your children the necessary beliefs, the aqaid, and making them absolutely certain about it, everything else is just like, I don't know what to call it.
Making people aware of their great intellectual tradition, rather than what you see today is that, by the way, we inspired the scientific revolution, we inspired the Renaissance. Sadly, it all went wrong for us then, but, we had scientists too. We had like Khwarizmi. And they don't know about any of our real figures. They don't know about Fakhruddin Razi and Mullah Fanari and all these great people. They tell them about, the people who were coming up with they came up with algebra and that's all they know about, that's all they teach about. Why? Because they've already a priori accepted the supremacy of Western modernity. Exactly. And all they can imagine is we played a bit part. Okay. But, forgive me, I want to move on to another question, which is the following. You with all of your study, all of your, mashallah, very visible jalal and nur, you could live in the West. You could do Dawa. You could. So how about this argument, this counter argument? You could, you should be there doing Dawa. You should be there spreading khair. So, why? So it's not just that issue. There's also the issue of what that we've discussed before, this kind of extreme decline that the West seems to be going into now.
Yeah.
If you could comment a little about both of those things.
So there's two things, actually. Number one is that, so the ijma, we were talking about mahal of ijma, the consensus of the scholars that if you cannot preserve your deen in a place, then you have to do hijrah, except if you're doing dawah. But that doesn't mean you are. It doesn't mean you're creating Islamic memes on Twitter and you're living in Bay Area. You think you're doing dawah.
It's like I'm doing dawah.
I'm doing dawah. So I
have
every reason to live. No, there's parameters of what dawah is. First of all, you have to be capable of doing dawah. You have to know the barahin, the hujjaj. You have to know your Quran, your ahadith, the ulum, the alas, and all those things. And so that is one reason actually you can stay in the West.
What if you're doing dawah to girls you're meeting in the bar?
I mean, it's
that halal?
That's a lot of you know the answer to that. You know the answer to that. But in all honesty, in seriousness, actually, you cannot possibly do dawah when the structures of dawah, the dawah, the big dawah, dawah trademark. Dawah trade, your big pharma,
the Dawa
big
industrial complex.
Dawah, when all of them are actually pulling your legs and trying to, kind of undo the work you're trying to do. When all you're trying to do is teach people jazm tam, absolute certainty in your aqaid, and they come up and throw these curveballs at people in general, at you, or call you names, or kind of really make things difficult for you, in many, many ways. And also, let's not forget, why would I do dawah in the West? Because it's just not me being there. That would include my family, my wife, my kids. It's obligatory on us actually to make sure that by Quranic ayahs and ijma of the ulama, that saving yourself and your family comes before society in general. Ya ayyuhalladhina a'udhu billahi as-sami'il 'alim minash shaitanir rajim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. So you have to save yourself first and your family. And then you have to think about, there's a lot of people in the dawah scene, their family life is absolutely destroyed. They have nothing going on. Wife is divorced, kids are skateboarding and vaporizing, and they have pronouns. And yet he's in the mosque every day and he's red pilled. He's red pilled and he's quoting Andrew Tate, and he's like, really, he thinks he's nailing it, right? So I don't like that kind of a thing. It's, for me, it's too much of I mean, you can technically do it, but the risks actually outweighs the rewards.
They certainly do. Now, can I ask you another question? I feel personally that the West has declined very, very sharply, and that is exponentially escalating at the moment. When I left England, it was in 2005. And when I returned, when I went back for my 5-year sojourn there, when I was at the University of Cambridge in 2017. Now, I was shocked when I went back. I was absolutely shocked because there seemed to be a profound decline in almost every single area, socially, in terms of people's levels of happiness, the kind of coherence of their identity, economically, in terms of the proliferation of homelessness, drug use, poverty now increasing all over the place, the way that it has become acceptable to leave certain areas, and kind of, we're talking about the richest areas in the world in total decline, this kind of slumber.
So basically, there's two ways in which I address the hijra issues, right? One is that you cannot really, in good faith, you cannot maintain absolute certainty. Perhaps you can, but perhaps your children cannot, your circle of friends and family cannot maintain absolute certainty in the daruriyat of our religion. Because the schools society in general, circle of friends, people being affected by what they see, they're always doing tashkik, putting doubts in you. And
I'm just going to interject. I feel that some people, because they don't have that ilm al-kalam background that we're very blessed to have, they might be balking at this idea of absolute certainty, which is true. But I would say that even on a more basic level, it's not just about you literally can't maintain your deen. I mean, let's leave absolute certainty out for a second. You can't maintain, if the kids are being so disturbed by the fact that they're on, Google, they're on YouTube Shorts all day, seeing people acting in totally crazy ways. And these ideas, which are postmodern extreme ideas, are becoming normalized for them. The idea that they're even there's a high probability, I'm trying to say, that they're going to grow up not within a Muslim identity anyway, even beyond the question of absolute certainty. I mean, that is something that's happening left, right, and center.
And it is something that was predicted by the Prophet ﷺ when the famous hadith where he was asked about the end of times. One of the signs of the end of times is kathratul masajid, that a lot of masajid will be.
And there's a great symbolism in that.
Kasratul masajid, a lot of mosques are being built, but you will not find mu'minan fiha. You will not find a moment in it, So I think that if you look at it, we have so many masajid, so many converts, but because of this issue of people having constant doubts in their aqaid, they may be mu'min as far as the dunya is concerned. We treat them like Muslims, they die, Muslims, they marry. But as far as the akhirah is concerned, they're not a mu'min because they always had shak and doubts about the most important aspects of their religion. So for me, the hijrah is about safeguarding your aqidah before everything else.
That's the most fundamental.
Because at the end of the day, we know this for a fact that it's your aqidah that really is the salvaging, is something that will save you. That will save his aqidah. And amal kulluna muqassarun, and we ask Allah to actually, have rahmah on us. But it's really, really important to get the aqidah right. So that's one aspect of the hijrah. The other thing is the coming implosion of the West. And for that, I don't even have to go into details because I think your audience are intelligent, smart enough, and they read what's happening, is that, and sometimes this is the point actually I tell people, like, listen, it's practical for you to leave the West now. Really, it's not even about hijrah in the Islamic sense. Just for you to have a good standard of living, for you to live in a place where your dollar or your pound actually will give you more value for your money. Practically speaking, for you to maintain your standards of living, you have to leave the West because of the upcoming economic, social, and political implosion, which is unraveling at an extreme pace, but it still hasn't hit that,
it's getting awfully close.
It is, but it still hasn't hit that critical mass. And for that, your audience, they're intelligent enough to know. So hijrah, save your aqidah, that's where you have to do hijrah. But if that's not your concern, but at the very least, you should move out of the West just to have just so that you're not part of the hundreds of thousands of people who are going to be witnessing something spectacular, when the proverbial that thing hits the fan, So it's practical. Actually. It's practical.
I'm glad you censored yourself.
Yeah. So
I was going to have to do some nifty editing there. I'm going to have to get my beep sound effect. Habibi. No, I totally see what you're saying, and it is absolutely the case that as we've always said, not that one should necessarily chase after dunya, but the truth is, it's not what it used to be that leaving the West means al-tanazul ala dunya, that you're not going to have any. The truth is, to live, if you're upper middle class in many of these countries that let's say Jordan, for example, you can live a lifestyle that you'd have to be pretty much a millionaire to live in countries in the West now. That's an interesting irony. I don't think that was true a while back. It shouldn't be a motivation. It just happens to be true. I think this is very interesting that the tables are very much turned.
So it's not like you have to refute or refuse the religion.
Not widely known, unfortunately.
You don't really have to. You don't have to refuse the religion or refuse to accept the whole thing, and you have to throw everything out. No. The mere fact that you're having shak and tazalzul on the most important beliefs, that's enough for you to be, it's enough actually not to be considered a moment in the akhirah.
Yeah, this really makes me think of something, because I think it's really important. We're not talking about some sort of strict rationalism. Every Muslim has to be some sort of philosopher, advanced mutakallim. Not at all. What we're saying is, in Muslim countries traditionally, and still this is the case to a sufficient degree, you were in an environment where Islam was experienced. It was lived and breathed. Its reality wasn't doubted. You heard the adhan. You heard people doing prayer on the Prophet ﷺ. There was still, especially in places where there are chains of transmission of spiritual inheritance of the Prophet ﷺ, there were individuals who existed who emanated, right, this reality of certainty. And you would attend gatherings, you would attend majalis, you would be in circles where there wasn't this doubt wasn't even entertained. And it wasn't just a psychological posture. You happen to say, who cares? I mean, anyone can claim to be certain. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a lived and experiential certainty. And if your environment is constantly shak, postmodernism, relativism, it's everywhere. It's on all of the TV programs now, on all of the YouTube shorts, it's on all of the things that you're exposed to, it's in the education system, then it's very, very difficult to envisage that it's very likely that people are going to survive that. And someone posted the other day somewhere, and I thought it was very good, that, oh gosh, someone's, my child's come to me and said that they believe in all of these liberal dogmas, which are manafil al-Islam. And it's like, what a surprise. I sent them to a secular, I gave them a secular education for 12 years. What do you expect? You'd expect them to come and say, you are doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
So I think that's...
so that's why a lot of people might be like, okay, what's the solution? These things exist even in Muslim countries. There's a lot of khizi, there's a lot of inhiraf, there's a lot of, degeneracy. Actually, there's a new word I've learned in Twitter, which is copium. Have you heard of it? Copium?
There's so many new words.
I didn't know, even cope.
Cope, red pill.
Based, ratioed.
Amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we learned.
Yeah, we're millennials, aren't we? We're not Generation Z or whatever it is.
I love that
word. We're learning these things.
I love the word copium. It's a copium of the Western Muslims who are always like, when you tell them you have to do hijrah, they're like, but they're even worse, There's never existed a worse copium. Like they have to cope, right? So in order for them to cope with their makhazi, their shortcomings, they have to say that, but Dubai is worse. Muscat this. Qatar that. It's a coping mechanism. And especially, our parents' generation, who really believe the best Islam is in America. The best Islam, the real Islam is in America. That kind of stuff. and my answer to them, obviously, when I'm not in a mood to kind of disrespect, I'll tell them simply is that, listen, my kids, if they are going to school in Pakistan or in Afghanistan, obviously Afghanistan is an obvious example, but let's say Pakistan or Oman or Jordan, they do not come home asking me, have you come from monkeys? I thought it was Hazrat Adam, Sayyidina Adam, they're saying monkeys. Because even in Pakistan, my 12-year-old daughter's teachers would teach them aspects of evolution, but all the time, but Allah is doing this, but Allah, the teachers.
Adamic exceptionalism.
Yeah, they would always say, but this is wrong. Allah does everything, So my daughter never came home being confused about, are we descendants of an ape? No, she never. They don't come to your home.
Can I choose my gender?
Gender, absolutely. She was never in doubt about her gender.
And these things happen.
It absolutely
did. I
wish it was a joke.
I wish it was a joke.
And they never come home and ask about what is a drag queen, what is a transgender, what is this thing all about, right? Because these things eventually, right? If you introduce young, impressionable minds to these issues that early, for sure you're opening doors for more tashkik and doubts down the road. Obviously, there's a lot of things online, social media, things of that nature. You still have to be a good parent. You still have to do your job. But at the very least, the most important hours of your children spending with other kids and going to school, you could be absolutely certain that 99% of the time, nobody is sitting and whispering things in their impressionable minds about, maybe you're this, maybe you're that. So it's a practical thing. We can sit on Twitter and complain about so many things all the time, but I'm a person that I love solutions. What is the solution? Hijra. Where do we go? So this was the background to I'm sure as your next question is move to Muscat, which is a project. And in fact, I moved to Muscat. I encouraged move to Indonesia. I encouraged move to Amman, Jordan, move to Indonesia, Malaysia, Turkey, any Muslim country where you can preserve your deen. Because in the beginning, we said the preservation of the deen is mahal of ittifaq of all the ulama, that in order for you, hifz of deen, preservation of the deen, if you cannot do it in a certain place, you have to make hijrah. If you're capable and you're not doing it, you're committing major sin, which is a big issue. It is the mahal of ijma. You can look this up, and it's not something I like.
And this is the point. It's that sense of this. There's not any serious difference of opinion.
Absolutely.
But the way the discourse has been portrayed, as if it's the opposite.
Yes.
As if there's no problem. It's not even an issue. And it's amazing, I suppose, to use that new language I'm not quite so sure about, don't quite like, but, I suppose a lot of people have been red-pilled recently about the fact that that's not actually the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do with my services, because I believe in certain things, I'm a person who wants to find solutions to a problem, which I think a lot of Muslims have. Mm-hmm. So the solution for me was to first move to a Muslim country, and I've been living in Muslim countries for a long time. And then through my experiences to come up with solutions to the hijrah problem. And, move to Muscat is one of those solutions. What I do is I help people, give them information about what Oman is all about, how to get residency here, a lifestyle, putting your children in school, getting the iqama, opening your business.
And you actually secure that.
And I do that from A to Z because, in our experiences when we were moving around, the kind of things we experienced.
You spend years trying to
years, waste of money.
That's a waste of time and money.
A lot of scammers come your way.
Yeah.
So, from those experiences, I said, no, this is not only is it a good business model, but it's something that I think is the need of the hour. Mm-hmm. Is if we are all about hijrah, then you have to provide solutions to it. So it's something that I'm playing my part in it, providing residency solutions to Oman. But obviously, Oman is certainly not, Oman is certainly not the only place, but it's the place that I'm living right now, and I really love it. I love the people. I love the fact that getting residency is easy in Oman. Living as a Muslim is so easy. Society as a whole is very conservative.
I think some people are worried, and all that is true, and I've verified that, but some people are worried, and I think it's an unfounded worry, but I wanted you to deal with that, is that this whole Sunni Ibadi thing.
I've dealt with that on my Twitter account. If people actually can go to my Twitter account, move to Muscat. I've dealt with this issue that Oman is predominantly Ibadis. They're Muslims, but they're not Ahl Sunnah. Yeah. They're Muslims, they're not Ahl Sunnah, and that's about 60% of Omanis are Ibadis. But there's also 30% native Sunnis. Native Sunnis is important, the Balochis, and they're Ahl Sunnah Hanafis. And then you have a big population of workers from the Indian Muslims from Kerala, Syrians, Egyptians, Palestinians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, a lot of Sunnis. We have Sunni mosques. The Ibadis, they pray behind the Sunnis pray behind the Ibadis, because in the Ibadi Aqidah, there's not something that really stands out as a red flag, which causes you not to pray behind them. There's nothing of that nature. Very noble people, Omanis in general, very noble people. And there's a hadith about the character of the Omani people, how they really are noble and would not persecute you or oppress you, things of that nature. And it's well known about the Omanis. And I've experienced that firsthand. So the people are noble. The country as a whole is stable monarchy. Economy is booming. It's stable. Getting residency is easy. It's hot, but not every place is going to be perfect, right? Not everybody's going to have California's weather. You can enjoy that weather, but then the pride.
I had terrible weather. It was a freak year once in 30 years. It was a storm for 3 months.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So weather is kind of a thing where you get over it. For me, it was hot. I came in June, July actually last year when I first was researching it. It was extremely hot, but you get over it because there are also 6-7 very decent moderate months. And at the end of the day, these are secondary concerns because I would rather be in a hot place and be happy and hard than be in California and watching a pride pass by my house,
Pride parade.
Yeah, the freak shows. So yeah, Muslims can do something if you become part of the elite. But to become part of the elite, again, you have to
sell yourself.
You have to sell yourself and forget about disregarding the most basic beliefs. You actually have to promote degeneracy. You actually have to promote the kind of things that's anathema to Islam. So the only way Muslims can become part of the system, part of the elite, is to become literally to sell themselves. Other than that, there's nothing that they can do. So again, it ties to this whole issue of hijrah, the systems that exist, the challenges to the Muslims, and we're just playing a very small part into this, and may Allah accept it, and hopefully we're able to help people. But it's good to know the reality of the matter rather than just to be to be sleeping and thinking what's going on, and being in this la la land where you think things are just hanky and dory, things will happen, inshallah. We're getting the converts, we're getting the masajid, inshallah, Islam in the safe hands.
To not be aware of the seriousness
absolutely.
of the dangers.
It is the ultimate khizy, when people are that ignorant of their own reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Anwar. I think that this has been a very, very informative and entertaining session. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we very much look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye now.